our next icebreaker speech, and it's Chuck, and he's gonna come up, and he's gonna go ahead and do his icebreaker speech.
Hey guys, thanks for braving the weather. My icebreaker speech is called High Expectations. The 50-let probody is a Russian icebreaker. I figured I'd talk about icebreakers. It's 524 feet long, it's 98 feet wide. It can go through 10 feet of ice at up to 30 miles an hour. Now what does an icebreaker ship do? It clears the path for what's coming up behind it. Sometimes it has a safe course, sometimes not so safe course. But everybody in life has an icebreaker in their life that clears a path for them. Again, some safer, some not so safe. In my life, my icebreakers were my parents, who had high expectations. Now, my mother had quite a nature of her, and she was a coal miner's daughter who grew up in Kentucky, and my grandfather died in a coal mine cave. But one thing that he wanted to be sure of was that his kids never had to mine coal with their hands like he did back then. So for that reason, he encouraged them to go to college, have high expectations. So my mom got done with high school at 16. She went off to college. Now my mom finished college. She was the valedictorian of a not so big of a class, but she had a double major in physics and math. Now in the 40s, very few women went to college, and only 5.3% of women actually finished college. A lot of people were going to college then because of the GI Bill, but not many finished. In that same class was my dad, who was 5 years older, but he had been in the Army. He was a radio operator in the South Pacific, and so he, on the GI Bill, went to college, and that's where they met. Well, soon after graduation, they got married. My dad went off to work for GE in Cincinnati. And my mom stayed home to raise a family. All that education. Raising the family for the next 12 years, my mother was pregnant for 7.5 of those years. She finally cried uncle at the 10th baby, which was me. I was very painful to birth. More painful to raise. But in our house, we had high expectations. Everything was based on education and discipline. So there's 5 boys, 5 girls. Of those, 9 have college diplomas. 7 have advanced degrees. My oldest sister is a photographer, but she has a master's degree in history. She lives in New York City. My sister, who's a year older than me, is a professor at Boston College. She's got a doctorate in business from the University of Michigan and 2 master's degrees. Me, I'm just the lonely old medical doctor in the family. So I've been doing that. I graduated in 1991. Our life was, a lot of discipline, but the good thing was when my older brothers and sisters got older, they drove my dad freaking crazy because they started to have a life of their own and make their own decisions. So my dad was kind of distracted, so I could be kind of the rebel. And one of the great blessings in my life was my best friend who grew up across the street from me. His parents owned a roller skating rink. And it's still in business 57 years later on Hamburg Street in upstate New York, near Schenectady. And he runs that roller skating rink. It gave me a lot of opportunities to socialize. And I got to be the DJ, because I was basically the owner's other kid. So, I just thought that was kind of cool. But I got to develop a great love of music. And, music from the 80s, I'm pretty spot on at name that tune. But at my house, again, education was always important, as well as discipline. You must have discipline. And high expectations, obviously. So, off to college I went. First in upstate New York, and then my parents moved to South Carolina, where I went to Francis Marion College, now University. At the end of college, I didn't know what I was going to do. I worked for a living. And it was sitting on a roof, upside down, nailing in shingles, sweating, where I thought, well, I definitely don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I took the MCAT, I went to medical school, and that's gosh, it's 16-hour days for 4 years, really competitive. They say it's the hardest thing is to get in, but it's a lot of work. Residencies, 100+ hours a week, plus studying for another 5 years. I did anesthesia and pain management. In pain management, you learn a lot from your patients. You know, they say you become what you think about. Well, these people only think bad thoughts all day and all night, except for a few. And a few you see turn around and you wonder, and I learned a lot of lessons from them. What are they doing? With that information, I improved my lives, helped them along the way. And I also helped my kids. I got 2 kids, they're 25 and 19, both doing really well. My daughter was a world-class speed skater. She was 2nd at the junior Olympic level when she was about 15. My son's at NC State about to switch to Chapel Hill. And now I work mainly doing anesthesia, leading a team. You know, you learn a lot about leading a team when there's somebody's life at stake. I still do some pain management. I'm currently working on a book that talks about personal turnarounds and bridging the gap between where you are, what your performance is, and what your potential can be. I'm hoping to help a lot of people make some breakthroughs and see what their potential truly is. Kind of like an icebreaker. So they have a lot of high potential, and I hope that you guys can make some breakthroughs and reach your own high expectations.